when we tell people what the Lord has been doing in West Africa, in a country that's 98% Muslim in the Sahara Desert, where the temperatures can reach up to 130 degrees, they say, well, you're a missionary. I could never do that. But if someone would have told us 10 years ago while we were here at Ozark and said, you're going to spend your entire first year with a heat rash all over your body and boils the size of golf balls growing in your armpits, I would have said, I could never do that.
If someone said to me, you're going to walk 3 miles across desert sand dunes in the hot sun with no water and your 6-month-old baby on your back, I would have said, I could never do that.
But one thing we've learned since the day that God first burdened our hearts for the people of West Africa is this: God is strong, and His power is made perfect in weakness. So many times I've wanted to say, I could never do that. But God says, well, of course you can't. But I can. When we first moved to West Africa, to one of the poorest nations in the world, we decided to take on a life of poverty, to live like the people did. We didn't buy a car. We walked or we rode around on un-air-conditioned buses everywhere we went. We didn't buy an air conditioner. We didn't buy a washing machine. We didn't even have a shower head or a flushable toilet.
I dressed as the women did there. In 120-degree weather, I wore a long skirt, long shirt, head wrap, and veil. We became a part of the community. At first, it was so hard. Physically, emotionally, spiritually, it was really draining. But at a wedding, I met Zena. At first, we couldn't communicate very well, but little by little, as my language increased, I started to share little truths about Jesus. She ate up those words, and she was watching.
And the culture we work in is an oral culture. Most people don't read or write. But thanks to the help of a translation project, we were able to get Luke and Acts translated and recorded on these little solar audio players.
I gave the first solar radio to Zena. A week later, she came to my house and didn't sit down in her excitement and told me about how she'd been listening to the gospel in her language that whole week. She said, Katie, this is such good news. Jesus is so powerful. She had been playing these recordings for anybody who came to her house and all of her neighbors. She wants to know, and she wants other people to know. She would invite me to weddings in villages, and so we would travel there, and she would say, these people need to hear about Jesus. And so we went and we gave out solar radios to women in different towns. One woman came to me a while later and she said, I've been listening to this all the time. This is my new best friend.
I met Little Rock, a young man studying to be a religious teacher, one day as I was walking through town. He came up to me and he said, hey, I hear you have stories about the prophet Jesus. And not only that, he comes from a family of some of the most influential people in town. His dad and his relatives are all imams, religious teachers. And yet he started coming over to our house 3 or 4 times a week, just wanting to hear these stories about Jesus. We'd read the scriptures together or listen to one of the solar players. And in fact, he even took one home. He listened to it over and over again. And he'd come back and we'd talk about the stories. He hungers to know more about the truth of God. When a group of religious extremists started closing in on our area and tensions started rising, I decided to get Katie and the kids out of town. It was that very night I ended up spending the entire night in a closet because this group of men had come to our door trying to break in to take me hostage. They fired 2 or 3 shots with an assault rifle through the little lock that holds the door closed, and yet this door held tight, and God protected us. He is strong. And so the next day I left town and met up with Katie and the kids. But while we were there, we asked, what can we still do to help the people that we grew to love, the refugees in the area? And so I decided to go back and do a food distribution. And while I was there, I met up with Little Rock, and he came and he said, why are you here? You get shot at, and yet you come back. And it was a great opportunity for me to share about the love of Christ and say it's because of the gospel, it's because of Jesus.
If someone had said to me while I was studying at Ozark, you're going to train a Muslim woman to be your best evangelist, I would have said, I could never do that.
And if someone would have told me, you're going to spend the night hidden in your closet with a group of terrorists outside your door just for an opportunity to share more about Jesus, I would have said, I could never do that.
But God said, of course you can't, but I can. I'm just one.
And I'm just one, but our lives make a difference.